see. Okay, good morning, everyone. I believe people are still popping on the call. Welcome to the May Savvy Seniors Living Seminar 2021 in our fourth full year. And while people are gathering and coming on to watch today's presentation, I'll just remind you that this is an ongoing series that we started back in 2027. And the whole goal was to offer free education and empower and engage and educate the 65 plus folks that live in our communities. And we try to be focused on housing related issues. And sometimes we go a little farther afield, covering things like senior scams and emergency preparedness. But ultimately, it's all about our home and our health and aging successfully. And today is a second part of a three-part series within the year that is focused on getting rid of our stuff. And I think a lot of us have been more focused on our stuff over the last year because we've been home a lot more and have been surrounded by it 24/7. So last month, if you had joined us, we talked about, actually, we did a presentation on something we'd never done before, which was the emotions, the actual psychology behind letting go. And we focused on letting go of things primarily, but granted that can be an extension of others. You know, the things represent other things, if you will. And so I hope for those that had joined last month, you got some good nuggets out of that. And that kind of teed up today's presentation, which is more the nuts and bolts of, okay, we kind of understand why we've held on to these things. Now we've come to terms with the whole fact that we are getting ready to downsize. We either want to live more simply where we are, or we're really considering making a move, and we really don't need to bring all these things with us. So today we're going to talk about, what do we do with all these things? Where do they go? Who can help? And you know, the good news is you do not need to do this alone. There are lots of amazing people that can support you through this part of the downsizing, right-sizing process. And I've got two wonderful people here today that I rely on every week to help me help our clients do just that. So Tammy, I'm going to ask Tammy to introduce herself initially, and then we'll have Derek introduce himself. So Tammy, tell us who you are and what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Okay, I'm Tammy Jo Borowski, and the name of my company is Clear Organizing. I started in 2004, and so I've been in business for a long time. I wear two hats. I'm a professional organizer, so I love working with people with their things, but I'm also a move manager. And so it's helping people deal with downsizing and moving things, and then also setting up their new place. So I have a staff of 12. We are fully bonded and licensed and insured. We're part of two organizations, the National Association of Professional Organizers, and also the National Association of Senior and Specialty Movers. And so we hold a national accreditation with NASM. So, but we love what we do. We love helping people every day.
What my clients have told me, they're angels, they're angels. So, you know, there's worse things to be called, right?
Exactly.
Derek, tell us who you are and what you do and who you're with and how long you've done it and all those good things.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Derek Torres, and I've been in senior management at Clark's Auction Gallery since 2009. But I've been in the industry since I was 19, so that's too many years that I can count. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the auction industry from being 19 and going to school and trying to buy something. In that time, the market's changed completely, which we'll get into a little later. I'm also an appraiser, which even appraising items is different than it was when I got my appraisal credentials. So that's something that at least we can share on or touch on today. And I know those of you who heard the last conversation about sentimental items, that's a big deal. And I have to explain that to different clients almost every time I meet with a client, because in my job, or if you bring something to market at auction or an estate sale, once it's gone, and the client doesn't have that sentimental attachment. The buyer doesn't have that, but I enjoy what I do, and I love participating in this every time Dayna invites me.
You're so awesome. And you know what, for those of us are on today that don't know even what CLARS is, what is CLARS? Where are you? What do you do?
Thank you, Dayna. We're a full service auction gallery in Oakland, but we represent clients all over the country, both large and small clients. It doesn't matter. Most recently, the Robin Williams estate. We've represented the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So financiers, we run the gamut. So, and I could get into that a little later as well, how a regional gallery such as CLARS has just as much impact as a major gallery like Christie's. And I could point to direct examples as to why and how.
Wow, that's awesome. So, and I guess I would be amiss if I didn't introduce myself. I always forget to do that. I am Dayna Wilson. I'm a seniors real estate specialist and downsizing diva, as some people jokingly call me, with Keller Williams Realty East Bay. And I got my license in 2006. Initially started out in securitized real estate investments and then dipped my toe into residential, never looked back. And then I soon determined that my favorite peeps to work with were people really 55, 65 and older, my age and older. And so I've been focused on that demographic ever since. And we're just very blessed that every year, you know, business continues to grow. And with that, we continue to add different concierge services and things that we can do to make people's lives easier through this very stressful transition called moving, really. So before we dig into Tammy and move management, I thought I would touch on estate sales because it is a piece of this whole process. And I wanted to just tell you a little bit about what they are and maybe what they're not. So they're not garage sales. They're very different than a garage sale. Estate sales are usually associated with someone that is moved and now it's time to dispose of all the items left behind that they didn't take with them. There are so many different types of estate sale companies. And so I wanted to kind of go over kind of what they could do for you and what you might want to think about and questions you might want to ask them when you are considering hiring them. So they will come in and they're going to evaluate your things. They're going to set up your items to sell, price them accordingly. They're going to monitor the sales and the flow of traffic. A good estate sale company has security. They are inviting their database. They do the advertising, the marketing, the pricing. Some of the companies that we use actually are members of the, I think it's called the Ashford Institute of Appraisals or Appraisers, no, Antiquities, maybe. That's the name, right? Right, Derek?
I'm not sure about that one.
The Ashford Institute,
Okay.
yeah. So they can do also some personal appraisal of items. And if they don't know what something's worth, they're going to do the research for you. So they're going to arrange any appropriate permits that may or may not be required. And then again, advertise and ensure that there's a high flow of traffic. So how do you prepare? So usually estate sale companies want you to leave behind everything. And they don't even want you to take it out of the drawer or the closet. They just say, leave everything right where it is. And then they're going to dig in and determine how they want to group things. So you can leave that 45-piece china set in the china cabinet. They're going to take it out, they'll clean it up, and they'll mark it accordingly. So they know how to display things the best. Now, some estate sale companies will only use your items. Some will actually bring in items from other estate sales to kind of beef it up, if you will. They know what draws the attention of the attendees. And they're going to recommend, again, that you don't discard anything, because you may think that your great grandma's really tarnished teapot is just worthless, and yet they may know otherwise. They may see a stamp on it somewhere, polish it up, and be able to actually get you quite a lot of money for something that you may have thought was fairly worthless. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this, because it isn't like a garage sale, right? If you were going to do a garage sale, you will be responsible for organizing, right? Cleaning everything, pricing everything, as well as disposing of all the items that didn't sell. So that's what an estate sale company is going to do for you. They're going to handle all the details, and they have a vested interest in making sure that you're going to get the most amount of money for your precious treasures, because they get paid from the profits of the sale. And typically around here, it's usually 35 to 45% of the sale. That is typical. It's all negotiable, and I guess it all will depend on what the items are. For instance, I know sometimes people have left classic cars as part of an estate sale, and they are going to take a lesser cut in something like that, because it's going to be a very high-end item, if you will. And so I wanted to just go over real quickly a couple questions that you might want to think about. Tips for hiring. So obviously read the contract first and understand what they're going to do and what they're going to charge, and how they're going to do it. Find out if they're appraisers or not, and if not, and if there's something that they or you think might have a higher value, you can call someone like Derek, and he can come and tell you if it's something that maybe should be held back. Now, if there's something that is unclear of the price, you can always set a reserve on it. So if it doesn't sell for the price that you want for a number of items, then they don't sell it, and then you get it back, and you get to choose what happens to that item, if you will. Make sure that advertising, storage, cleanup, travel time, sales permits, trash disposal are all included in their fees, because people forget about that. They're just thinking about what they're going to make on those items that are on those tables in all the different rooms of their home. What length of time do they need to set up the sale? So we just had a sale on one of my listings this week, and they needed 3 days to set up. Their sale was 2.5 days, and then they needed a day and a half for cleanup. So it doesn't just happen in a day. So we need to plan that out and see how that falls in the timeline. Sometimes we actually don't have the time, based on other financial needs, to do an estate sale. Sometimes we don't have enough things to do an estate sale. So that's another problem or challenge, if you will, that most estate sale companies are going to want to see a total sale of somewhere on the low end, 7,000 to 10,000. Some on the higher end is 10, 15,000 plus. And then again, they're getting their, let's say, 35% split in that amount, if that makes sense. I hope that helps. Do they offer a private pre-sale for family and close friends if you request that? That might be something you want to think about. And again, do they clean up, and to what degree? I will say usually the companies we use, they do they sweep, kind of a sweep clean up, and that's about it. They're not going to do a deep clean of your home. We'll bring in the cleaners after that. And then find out where they advertise, how well they advertise. Do they have a robust database? That's really important too, because you want those crowds coming in, creating that auction effect, if you will. And then how do they staff the actual sale, and do they have security? So there's some questions to think about. And so I hope that that gives you a little insight into estate sales. But what's so great is that once the estate sale, if we have one, has happened, well, then that's sometimes actually when Tammy gets involved. Or if there's not an estate sale, Tammy's going to get involved right away. So Tammy, let's talk about organizing and move management.
Okay.
And I'm not even going to get to the fees quite yet. We're just going to talk about what options do you provide to those who are really, what is a good fit for you and what isn't a good fit for you for a client? How about that?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay.
Can I add a couple points with that estate sale?
You betcha.
One question a lot of my clients have is, do I have to be gone before the estate sale happens? And the answer to that is yes. You have to be out of the house and have everything you want out of the house before the estate sale company will come in. And when they're coming to interview you to see if the house has enough stuff for the estate sale, if your items are still there, you want to go through and tag the things you're going to keep. Because the last thing they want to do is to commit to a sale with a lot of items, and then they come to start the sale, and a lot of those high value items have either been given to family or you've taken them with you. So they really want to know what's available for sale. The other thing is you might want to go to sales ahead of time. So there's that estatesale.org that you can go join online, and you'll get emails on all the sales that are in our area. And I think going to active sales just to kind of see how they process, how they market, and how they run the sale is a great thing. And the third thing is garbage. What I am finding with most of the estate sales that we're referring is most of the time they're kind of break even, which is not a bad thing. It costs so much to clear out houses. We had one the other day. It took 3 large garbage trucks and trailers, and that was probably about $4,000 in garbage to remove it from the house. And this wasn't a hoarding house. This was just a house that was well lived in with just a lot of things that charity didn't want, family didn't want. So do ask them about the garbage, because 99% of the time now it's not included. So that last, get rid of everything that didn't sell will come out of your proceeds. And sometimes that really eats a big portion of it. So my ideal client is anybody who's overwhelmed with their stuff. We love helping people go through stressful times. And whether it is helping somebody downsize and stay where they're living, or if they've decided they want to move and they know where they're moving, we love to help with those items. And so sometimes families around, but maybe they're too busy. Sometimes families around, but maybe the clients that we're working with would rather their kids not to be involved. And a lot of times we tag team with the clients and with the family. So we'll fill in the gaps anywhere where they don't want to fill it in. And so some people will say, gosh, I could do this myself. And the truth is, what we do is not rocket science. It's really a very nurturing, helpful process that we go through to help you with our wisdom of experience, all the steps along the way. And so you're not walking around in circles saying like, I'm going to deal with the books, and then you move the books here, and then you move the books here. We have a process that you really make progress to where you get to where you're going safely with your energy intact. And so I think the clients, our ideal clients, are people that really want help, who are willing to invest in themselves, to say, instead of getting injured and being overwhelmed myself, I'm willing to spend a couple $1,000s to have somebody help me with all the steps. So, and do you want me to talk about the different services that a move manager does?
Oh, I think that would be great. And really, because what's the difference between your organizing services and your move management services?
Mm-hmm. Well, traditionally I've been an organizer. I am an accountant by education, so I love people with paperwork. And so I used to love sitting with people going through boxes and boxes of unopened mail and things like that. I still do that some, but we really work more with people that are moving, and the paper takes so much dedicated time. And so we find that before you move, the best way to get ready for a move is to generally have your house organized. Not the Marie Kondo, not the home edit with all the rainbow stuff, but really saying, let's put like things together, because it helps you understand the volume of what you have. It helps you decide what to keep. And it also helps when you repack it, that when it gets unpacked, those like things are together. And so we'll generally just quickly go around and organize the house, or declutter, kind of clean up with our clients. And so that then begins the process. So then if someone, let's say, is going to move in 3 months or 6 months. Sometimes it's within a week. Sometimes it's tomorrow they need help. And so we just try to be flexible and do what we can. But hopefully somebody maybe gives us a month or so, they're going to get ready. We will start working in rooms that have less sentimental need, or they don't need the things every day. So let's say a guest bedroom or a garage. You know, who wants to drive in the garage every time and just see stuff everywhere? Things are in the garage because you probably haven't needed them before. And so we have processes where, as a move manager, we'll say the first thing we want to do is totally clear out that garage, anything that you don't want. So again, we have a process that you go through. And so next thing you know, that garage just has the vital things that you want. Creating space to then, if you decide you want to stay in the house while it's being listed, there's room to move things that you want in the house to go to your next house, but get out of the house so that the house can be nicely staged and ready for the listing process. So, but we go room by room. And if that's a slow process because people are making decisions, we're packing as we go. So that way, when we're done going through a room, it's all ready for the mover. Sometimes people are making such fast decisions, we just are pulling everything they don't want. You know, so we're pulling anything that we think charity could take, any garbage, anything that we can send to auction. So we're pulling those things, leaving everything else in the room so that then everything that's left is what they're taking to their next place. And then the mover comes in, packs really quickly and gets moved. And so there's different methods. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you know what I love that you do is that you keep people on task.
Right.
Maybe I think that would be kind of an important piece to share. Like, how do you do that? I just remember we've worked with so many clients together over the years, but I just remember, I think it was Ada. I don't even know if you remember her. What a sweet, fun lady, and her daughter. And that, you know, she was telling stories about the different items as you were packing, but you kept things moving along. What is your secret to doing that?
So the secret of that is initially when we're meeting with a client, we really ask a lot of questions like, are you really on the budget? Or how are you feeling about this move? Part of telling stories is part of letting go. It's a grief of letting go. And some people say, if I start stories, you need to stop me. Or if I start telling stories, thank you for listening, because I need to just go through this and accept this, that this is happening to me. And so whatever they say, that's what we do. And a lot of times they'll say, keep me going, keep me going. So we will very gently continue the process, say, I love that story, keep talking, but we're going to keep making progress. So we really focus. The other thing is we really encourage people not to what we call popcorn around. You know, you don't start in this room, do a little bit, and then start in this room and do a little bit. There's a real focus of saying, we're going to focus in this room and process it, i.e. set aside charity, set aside garbage, decide what's going to be packed. We really make all the decisions so that if you're ready to move the next day, that room is basically done. So that's another thing. You know, what our clients do a lot, we have an internal term and it's called an MSA, and I'll say it in a nice way, but moving stuff around. What we find a lot of times, the reason why clients finally call us is they're spending so much time just like moving stuff from one place to the other. And so we don't really allow that. You know, there's a sense of saying there's decisions, and then it's okay to have some things set aside that we're going to decide that later. But the real feeling is let's continue to make progress, and we don't want to move that stuff around over and over again. So that's the thing. And I think really knowing move managers should have a real nice Rolodex, isn't that an old term? A real nice contact list of all of our resources. We have people that come and buy sterling silver. You know, I call Derek really often. We deal with consignment stores. We deal with estate sale companies. We have garbage haulers that are phenomenal. And so we have a bunch of contacts, and also move managers, if they're part of a national organization. You know, we go to national conferences. We have peers across the country that can answer questions, you know, that really help with tricks of the trade. Or we share jobs. You know, if we have clients moving to Florida, I've got a counterpart in Florida that I work with to make sure that happens.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. It's really getting the stuff. Like, have you ever found that you're going through and deciding what you don't want, and by the end you're so tired, but yet you have all these stacks around? So that's one thing that a move manager does is the stacks. At the end of the day, when you're exhausted with making decisions, you can go rest, do what you want to do. Then we just get busy and make sure everything gets done. A lot of times we'll just fill up our car with charity items so we can drop it off. So all those decisions you've made actually get processed rather than them just becoming these piles.
Well, and what I love, another thing that I love about what you do and what you've done is that you really do try very, very hard to find homes for things too. So I know, at least in my world, often somebody is leaving behind a grand piano or a pool table.
Mhm.
Nobody wants those. It's
Right.
very hard to get rid of them. And sometimes we literally have to say they convey with the sale of the home. Like, you're
Right.
getting this piano if you get this house, whether you like it or not. But that's not optimum. And so I don't know how you do that, but how do you do that?
Well, so an example is we worked with a couple recently, Kim and Chris, and they kept postponing their move because of their piano. You know, I mean, that sounds kind of silly, but it really is what happens. People are so attached to their items that they really defer their happiness, or they defer their safety. So Kim and Chris, he had scoliosis and had the beginning onset of Parkinson's. And to visit with them and see how much they were struggling, really just to be able to make sure their china went to the right place, make sure the piano found a home, you know, it was heartbreaking. And so, you know, we worked with them about 2 months, not only finding places for those things, but also going through and finding the best part of the house, finding the things that they really loved. We got them moved. They moved to senior living, and we did the big reveal. You know, whenever we move somebody in, we try to set it up in one day. So they sleep in their bed one night. The move happens that day, and by 6 o'clock, typically that day, they walk in their room, their art's hung, the beds are made. So all the planning that's happened is there. And so to see them struggle because of a few items, to then be in their new place, what Kim said is, she said, I don't feel like I've lost anything. I feel like I'm a bigger, or not, she didn't say bigger, what did she say? I'm a happier me. It's like, I'm a happier me. So the thought of letting things go actually gave her a sense of gaining herself. You know, it was giving up who she was attached to all these things that maybe were part of her younger or prior life, but kind of embracing this is her true self of where she is in her life, rather than being attached to maybe who she might want to be, but you know, we have to kind of accept the ages that we are, that just accepting the fact that this is who I am and how can I make that the best. And it wasn't with the piano that she no longer played. So how we get rid of it is we just have a lot of contacts. You know, we will call schools, call piano stores. And I can tell you that it's not always successful. You know, we have to balance how much time we spend on individual objects versus, you know, how much you want to pay to get rid of those objects. What we find sometimes is we can rehome a piano, but oftentimes our client will actually pay the cost to get that piano moved to somebody else's house. So to save it from being hauled away, they will pay for a new owner. And so we coordinate the movers. You know, we know who moves pianos. We know who moves safes. We know who moves pool tables. But things like rocking chairs, grandfather clocks, large china cabinets, they're really hard to let go of. So our fingers are always crossed that somebody in the family will love the old grandfather clock, or really want to ship that rocking chair even to Southern California because they want to keep it in the family. So I think, so to answer your question, we don't always find a home for it. What our job is to help you understand what the market is, like what the reality is, how much do you want to spend to try to rehome it, but really get you to focus on what really is part of your ongoing life versus being tied down with that. We help you go through decisions like, we want you to kind of be selfish. Pick the things that really are going to feed your life. So if you love that china, use the china. You know, so when we're helping you pick out what to take next, it's like, well, you love the Waterford. What if you use Waterford every day? How wonderful is that? Because we can say that when Waterford sells, it's not selling for $80 to $200 a stem. It's selling for $20 a stem. So why not go ahead and use it? And so encouraging you to take the things that you really would love, honoring yourself enough to use those things, and then letting the other things go. We encourage you to invite family to come take some things, also knowing that they may not take a lot and being okay with that. You know, if you've been burdened, if you've been a warehouse basically for some of your things in your house your whole life, you don't want your child to also have to warehouse it for the next 40 years. So it's okay if they don't take it. And then, rehoming it to places like your housekeeper who loves things, tools, to your gardener. There's other things. Do you want me to talk about Max Sold?
Yeah, I would love you to. Yeah, because we talked about maybe touching on that, and even Facebook Marketplace, like how, are those
Right.
decent places, I don't know.
Right. There's all those tiers of deciding, like, I want to be selfish, in a fun way of what I really want. And then it's like, what do I want family members to have? And getting it to them, accepting if they don't want it. Do you have friends that you want to give things to? That kind of stuff. Maybe the next tier is estate sale. You want to keep everything else in the house to try to maximize that sale. But a lot of times there's just not the volume to justify an estate sale. So maybe the next thing is, let's cherry pick all the nice valued items. And Derek will talk more about that. I recommend cherry picking and getting them to an auction versus cherry picking and some other things. The things that maybe are not super high value that you need to have a broad audience for, then we recommend something like Facebook Marketplace or nextdoor.com. Those are sites that you can list. They're not Craigslist where it's open to everybody. It's really kind of a smaller subset of people maybe in your neighborhood or in a small invitee group. That you take good pictures of your items, you describe it. So if it is a Restoration Hardware or Pottery Barn, a name brand, make sure that's in the description, and you list them online. And you can list them and you price them. So you price them for what you think you can get for them. I can tell you most of stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and most all of it sales. Can you tell I'm from Mississippi? But it has to be a reasonable amount. So some things you might say this is worth $200. If you list it for $100, it may not sell. So you might find you have to lower the price down. And there's tricks of the trade on that. So when you list those things and people reply that they want it, first of all, you've got to make sure it's safe, have it outside the house, but also don't have somebody coming on Tuesday at 3 and then Friday at noon. And what you do is say, they're going to be available on Friday at noon. And so that way, everybody that's coming at the same time, and you're not having to wait around all the time to do all the rest of the stuff. The other trick that a lot of people don't know about right now is let's say you have some decor, maybe some candlesticks that you love. If you find somebody on Facebook Marketplace that likes those candles, what you might want to do is open up your garage, set up a table, and put all those other candlesticks you have or any other decor you have in the house on the table. So when that person comes to buy those candlesticks, they're probably some of your best customers that you can kind of have your own mini garage sale right there. You're not having to pay any commission or anything else. So it's like if they like your taste in this, they might like all those other things you have, and you can negotiate a price at that time. So that's kind of a way to not have a garage sale, but yet not have to list everything individually. So
yeah.
Then there's something else called Max Sold. And what Max Sold is, it's similar to, it's combining Craigslist and a traditional estate sale where it's all online. So either you or a move manager or somebody from Max Sold come to your house and you put groups of things that you don't want together. So they call them lots. So you might have a KitchenAid mixer, but along with the mixer, you might want to put a bunch of mismatched Tupperware or anything around it. And so you have all these lots, you take pictures of it, short description, that's loaded into the Max Sold website. And then let's say I'm going to be a buyer. I want to buy that KitchenAid mixer. I set up an account with Max Sold. I enter my credit card. And so I'm going to start bidding. Well, the starting bid is usually $1. So you're not spending a lot of time pricing things. You're just saying this is available. And the market sets the price. And so I don't want to accidentally sell it for $50 if somebody's willing to pay $100. So it kind of takes like an auction approach to say, if there's 2 people that want it, it keeps going up. You can set that auction to be 2 days, 3 days, as long as you want. I do know that the majority of the bidding happens the last half hour or 10 minutes of the sale. And if there's an item that multiple people want, that will stay open until there's 5 minutes between bids, and then it closes down. So what's nice is once you bid on something and you get it, you're told, well, actually beforehand, you're told what day you're going to have to pick it up and what time frame. And so what a Max Sold does is it gives you the ability to get market price it also keeps you from having to box everything up. Because if I am buying that KitchenAid mixer, I know I have to be there on Saturday at 2 o'clock, and I have to bring my own boxes. And so somebody escorts me into the house. I go to pick up the lots. I'm picking up that KitchenAid mixer. I'm also picking up all that Tupperware that maybe I don't want. But you know what happens? That Tupperware, then the person who owns the house doesn't have to spend the money to throw it away. And so the goal is to not only make some money, but also get rid of all the stuff that's not worth much money.
Yeah.
And I have to pay trash on that. And what about that couch that nobody wants? The one from the 70s with the big flower prints on it or whatever. In Max Sold, you list that, and hopefully somebody will bid $1 on it. Yeah, you're not making money, but you're not spending the $300 or $200 on the truck to get rid of it. And so it's a good way to clear out the house. Again, you're not going to make tons of money, but it's a way to not have to spend so much on the garbage and things like that. So with COVID, Max Sold has changed a little bit. Because you do have to spend time to put these lots together. And so you can hire us to do that. Like I say, you can hire Max Sold, but right now Max Sold's not going into houses in this area to do that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
And so they do it for pretty, I think it was like $700. They'll come in with a team of 3 for the whole day doing the lots and taking the pictures. Plus then they come on pickup day and they'll staff the front door to just let a certain number of people in. So it's a kind of a new, I think the estate sale business is morphing like crazy right now in terms of, not spending so much time with setup, but trying to figure out how to get rid of the stuff at the end, combining sales, combining online sales. So whatever we can to clear out the house.
Yeah. Well, and before we switch over to Derek, what are some of those strangest things you've come across in your clearing out? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
We always like to hear those.
We love our business because it's never the same.
Right.
Every client is different. We just love to go into their life wherever they are and help. But probably this is kind of creepy, but the strangest thing is actually we had a Max Sold, and about 3 months later, we got a call from the police. And in one of the cans that was sold, there was a bunch of antique cans, coffee cans out in the garage. That sold, the person who bought it opened it up, and there was a severed finger in the coffee can. Can you believe that? Oh my gosh. We were so it was investigated. They did DNA sampling. They interviewed our client, who was 95-year-old in a single thing. It was something that her husband had from years ago. And so you just never know. I mean, that was a really odd one, but we come across well, there's things like diaries that we really, treat very confidentially, and we'll shred it if that's what the client wants done. There's things that we find all the time. One thing that we interview clients ahead of time is say, is there anything you're looking for? And it's like, they'll say, I'm looking for Ed. And it's like, okay, so tell us a little bit more about Ed. Well, it's the, Uncle Ed, and they can't find the ashes. And so we are always on the lookout. If a client says, I'm missing a diamond earring, next thing you know, we are moving that nightstand, there's the diamond earring. So it's really just about anything you can imagine. Yesterday, the client, we were at a client's house doing a garage. My team posted some pictures, and there was a blow up doll. And that was the client had so much fun with it. I think he was in his late 70s. He'd forgotten he had it, and he and his wife just had the best time laughing about what they were finding in the garage. So you just never know. And that's what we try to do. It's a lot of work. There's some sadness, but you really try to find levity in it. And when you're feeling that, it's hard to let go of stuff to begin with. But when it really starts to, you start to release those things, there's just such a lightness that
it is. Yeah, it does. It's freeing. It is freeing. You don't understand that until you're on the other side of it all.
Right.
But I have my clients tell me the same thing. Right. I love that. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for all that good information. And then before I jump over to Derek, real quickly, share, because people are going to want to know, how do you charge for your services?
Oh, for me. Okay. We charge by the hour. So all move managers are different, and professional organizers are different. And so we've been in business a long time. We are insured, we're bonded. We have a major training program for our staff, and we bill by the hour. Our typical hourly rate is $125 per hour per person. We make a lot of fast progress. We bring all of our own supplies, things like that. So we do find our clients are super happy when we're done. And so they feel like they've invested in us and in them. There's other move managers that charge less. And there's some move managers that will do things on like if you pay them ahead of time, they will cut the rate down. So they'll say, if you give me $5,000 ahead of time, that's good for X number of hours. And then you just work down those hours.
Okay.
There's others, I haven't heard of anybody like this in our area, but sometimes people will come in and bid the job. So they'll say, we'll do this whole thing for $5,000.
Okay.
To me, when I first started, I did that. And I either found at the end, I didn't feel right because I had collected too much for my service, or vice versa. It was like, I can't keep a business and make that much per hour. So the other thing I do is we find that a lot of times clients are house rich, but maybe cash poor, or just the cash flow of selling a house. There's a lot of expenses up front. And so assuming the client has equity in the house and they've signed a listing agreement and there's a real sense that this is a marketable house, I'm happy to have the document signed where they can just pay our whole fee out of a close of escrow.
Yes. And you know that I've never had a house not sell. So
Exactly.
you're going to get paid.
Right. Totally. I don't worry about that. And like I said, there's a lot of people too, and one day I may do this, but a lot of people want at least a 50% deposit. So if they come in and estimate a job, they'll say, I want the deposit. My feeling is it's really a partnership and we're going to go through it. And I want to make sure you're happy. And so, I want to keep you up to date with how much you've cost to date, how much the bill is going to be, but we are there to make it happen versus nickel and diming each other.
Right. No, you're awesome. Derek, thank you for hanging out with us through all that good information with Tammy. So now we're going to talk about what you offer, and your gallery offers a lot of different services, evaluation, in-person and online auctions, consignments. You work with estates and trusts. So why don't we talk a little bit all about the services, and then we'll dig into some more details.
Great. And I think just to be clear, what Tammy Jo, what Clar's Auction, what any of us do is provide a service. And so another factor of service that Clar's offers is also appraisals. So we do estate tax appraisals, not divorce as much as, date of death, equitable distribution, appraisals such as that. We also have, we don't have in-person bidding at this point since COVID, or in-person valuations, but that is something pre-COVID that we did as well. One interesting fact with COVID, we were predicting a very, very big hit quarterly because we didn't know how the market would react to COVID. And it was the contrary. We found there were more buyers than before. And the sales were bigger than the year prior every single month. And we had our, in June, I'm going to just have one point to make via the COVID situation and a set of Warhol prints we had in June. The prints sold for $817,000. And the last time those prints came up for auction was at Christie's in 2014, and they brought $450,000.
Wow.
So it once again shows that just because you consign at a major gallery, it may not do, it may do just the same or worse, with all due respect to those galleries who we work with as well. On major estates, we work with both Christie's and Sotheby's on major estates. We are a full service gallery. We no longer offer broom sweep services. We did when I first got hired here because we just thought it would be a service to offer the client, and soon found out it's cost prohibitive to both the client, like Tammy Jo said, and us, if we had our logistics team over there helping. And so that's something we stepped away from. I enjoy working with move managers. I love working with Tammy Jo, and I like going in pre-max sold to see what's of value there, where a stronger market is better for the item. And to give you an idea of our exposure, which I find fascinating, we go live with our sales 10 days before the auction. Within 10 days, we get 300,000 hits to our online catalogs. And we sell literally around the world every month. So if something needs that exposure, you want to open it to the widest market. But grandma's rocking chair has no market except for maybe grandma's daughter or grandchildren. And that's what we find hard to sell. And that's also hard for me to go into a home and break the news to the trustees or the family in a kind and caring way, because we all have family and we all live with stuff, you know, and it is tough. It is tough to find potential new owners for that property. And that's why in some cases, I think Tammy Jo alluded to, give it to domestic help, because if they knew the decedent, at least they would also care about this item, you know, and it's going to a good place. And I'm working with an estate in El Cerrito now where they're taking a lot of property, and I'm grateful for that. You know, property that I couldn't sell, it's going to stay in the family. And I'm really happy for that, because when I go through, what I initially do is let the clients know where the market is, where the auction market is. And regardless of what the final end result's going to be for that client, I also suggest that a third party, such as an auction gallery or someone with that knowledge, goes through and lets the estate know where the value is. So one sister who has a really good eye doesn't pick out the 4 most valuable things in the home, and the other sister picks out 4 things that she loves that are a fraction of the value. So, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, but you know, I don't get involved in family dynamic, but it is nice if it's all equal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it is good to get another set of eyes. And I know we're getting short on time, but another point I'm making as far as that goes is I went to an estate sale and I was writing an appraisal, and I may have shared this story, but not today. So hopefully no one that's here has heard it, but I went to an estate sale, and it was on a Sunday. So typically Sundays, all the dealers have gone through, everyone's gone through. It's like watching a rerun the 4th time. So I went in and there was a major painting on the wall. And I asked the estate sale person how much the picture was. And she said, I sold it on the first day. I sold it on Friday for $20,000. And she was happy, the family was happy, but it was a $150,000 picture at auction, you know, and it ended up selling to a dealer. So although the family was satisfied with it, there was money left on the table, I guess is what I'm saying. And it goes back down to just pointing out those things, you know, and it happens more often than not. And I'm still learning, you know, I've been doing this over 30 years, but I'm not done learning. And that's why I love what I do, you know. Our commission is based on a sliding scale, depending upon what the item sells for. And so I typically don't recommend any item at $100 or under to come to market at auction. There's max sold, there's other avenues that are going to be better for the item. And even, you know, over 100 to 1,000 is suitable for auction in some cases, but our fee is 29%. Over 1,000, it starts falling dramatically. It falls to 20, and then over 3,500, 15. And, you know, over 7,000, it falls to 10. So it just continues to go down as the price goes up. And from your neck of the woods, actually, from Lafayette, Orinda area, we had the opportunity to sell a pretty important ring, and she was going to either bring it to market at Christie's or Sotheby's. She chose us. I went to her home and just spoke with her, and she was a lovely woman, and we sent it to GIA to get it certified. And this was just in March that we offered it for sale, and we ran it at 200,000 to 300,000, and it brought 350,000. And so she inherited that ring, and it goes back to that thing. She said, I don't need this ring. I need to help my grandchildren. And, you know, whatever the ring sells for is going to help my grandchildren. And I love those stories. And stuff is just stuff in the end, you know, but we think that we provide a good avenue to sell the property at auction.
So, you know, there's the auction, and then, so talk about in-person auction versus online auction, because that is kind of confusing to me too.
Okay, so in person, so all of our sales are simulcast online,
Okay.
All of them, even pre-COVID. And we have one of the widest internet reaches in the industry. But pre-COVID, we would have people in the room, like you see on TV with people raising their paddles. And that doesn't happen anymore because of COVID. But even pre-COVID, 70% of our business was online, meaning our successful buyers were bidding online. 30% was, we call it in-house. And now during COVID, it's probably 99% online and 1% in-house, which means they're, you know, bidding via telephone.
Oh.
So yeah, there's many ways to bid. I sold a Wayne Thiebaud painting some years ago, And the gentleman who bought it, he won it at his child's Little League game on his mobile device. It was $100,000. So, I mean, that's a lot to bid on at your son's Little League game on your mobile phone.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got the auctions, but then you do consign.
Yes. So everyone that chooses to use any gallery, is even a retail gallery, is considered a consigner, because we are a third party acting on the client's behalf to sell their personal property. So we don't own it, but we're representing the client to sell it. So it's consigning.
Oh, I see. Okay. So if I went to your warehouse, there aren't just things sitting around that I could purchase.
Not at all. No.
Okay.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because if you offer a high enough amount and the client agrees to that number, then yes, we can do a pre-sale auction.
I see. Okay. It would be a pre-sale auction. Okay. So how long do you hang on to something if it's hasn't sold, it's not selling, and then if it doesn't sell, what do you do with it?
We keep trying. So let's say, for example, we have an item that's 1,000 to 2,000 and it fails to sell for 500. We would then reoffer it the following month and reduce the estimate. And we would continue to do so as long as the client is receptive to that. If the client says, no, my Aunt Jane wants it now, then, Aunt Jane would have to arrange a pickup from our facility, but we don't charge anything because we never sold the item. So we only charge if the item sells.
Got it. Got it. And so if you have a buyer in Sweden that buys something, how does he get that piece to him? How does that piece get to him? I mean,
that's completely the buyer's responsibility.
Oh.
And there's been cases, and they still have to pay their invoice, but they can reconsign the property, if they so choose to. And I have cases almost every month where they didn't get a shipping quote prior to purchasing the item, and they would have to reconsign it because the costs to ship were cost prohibitive. It would have cost more to ship than they paid for the item, which is
Interesting.
Is unfortunate.
So what are some things that are selling for fairly high values right now that is surprising you? Or maybe is there anything different about what people are wanting to put their hard-earned money down on than in the past?
Well, I think the trend, at least for the last 4 years, and the numbers keep getting higher and higher, is for anything contemporary. And we've broken record here with contemporary art and furniture. We've broken records on the art side and the furniture side with contemporary. We had a Danish modern chair, I want to say last year, that brought 90,000 and sold back to a collector in Denmark. And that was a world record for that form. So that is consistent, we know that. But over the last 3 months, which is surprising to me, and I can't figure this out, antiques have been selling. And I did have from 2 estates really good provenance, meaning I had, when these pieces were purchased, and they were all purchased at Christie's and Sotheby's, I had the sale dates and the lot numbers. And that's a really big help, because the buyer then can say, wow, they got this at Christie's or Sotheby's. I want this, and it does help. Any provenance helps, if they buy, if I'm working with an estate that has a lot of even contemporary art, and they were buying at reputable retail galleries like John Burgoon in San Francisco, that sticker on the back is worth its weight in gold. So it's not just the print in the front or the work of art in the front. Sometimes the painting tells you more if you turn it over, so that's what's so great.
Do you ever find paintings behind paintings?
Yes.
You do?
Well, actually, a painting behind a mirror, which made national news.
Oh.
And, I've had an estate in Pebble Beach, and they were co-trustees. So 2 brothers, but I thought only one brother was a trustee. And then I got a call from the other brother who was like, my brother's stealing from me. And it was this long drawn out thing. And anyway, there was a mirror in the foyer. And I knew who made the frame. It was a pretty rare frame. So I asked my crew to bring it over to the gallery to sell, but I had to take the paper off the back of the frame to make sure it was Newcomb Macklin, who I thought it was. And when I took off the paper, there was canvas and a stretcher bar. So there was a painting back there. And we took it all apart. It turned out to be a rare painting from a North Carolina artist. and it sold back to North Carolina for, I want to say 50,000. But it made national news because this picture was long thought lost. And here it was behind a mirror all these years. And the brothers didn't know. I guess mom bought it as a mirror. So you never know. You just never know.
Isn't that fun? It's like a treasure hunt. It's such a treasure hunt. And so, so tell me if I'm wrong, but when I tell people about what I think might sell with you and Clar's, I say high end, you know, like luxury pieces, or extremely unusual, right, or mid-century.
You know, that's partly true. I would say that's very true, but then there's other facets as well. Okay. You know, if someone comes in with just something that has a market, someone came in with this really rare Georgian silver punch bowl, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, you know, and so not all silver is alike. You know, this punch bowl probably weighed, I don't know, probably 30 ounces, which isn't a lot of silver. And it sold for $8,000, well over the spot price. So not all silver is created equal, you know, and that's just something to bear in mind with anything, you know. And I love working with move managers, especially Tammy Jo, because I could, even if I don't know the answer, we have such a big team here at Clar's, I can ask a different specialist for their input, you know, and that's very helpful.
And one thing I want to mention, a selling point to me, is y'all come to the house and pick up. So if I have a client that has a handful of items that are auction worthy, you schedule the truck, and for, was it like $300, $350, you'll come pick up no matter what the volume is. Right. And that's a lot cheaper than like even getting something to consignment. So that's a great service that y'all provide.
Thank you, Tammy Jo. And you're right. And we make nothing on our logistics. You know, I mean, they're down in Pebble Beach, and I charged $500 for a full truckload from Pebble Beach to Oakland.
Wow. Pretty reasonable for sure. And so what's the strangest thing you've ever sold?
Well, this past month, the strangest thing was a European stork taxidermy that was in this place called Woodward's Gardens in San Francisco in the 1860s, which was the first amusement park after the gold rush. So that was kind of cool. It was what is today, it was part of the Mission District. It was part of what is today the Mission District, but provenance very solid. And there were other taxidermy items I couldn't sell, but that one I got to. And then the oddest still to date is a mummy hand with the scarab ring on it. And that sold for $10,000 or $12,000.
And I wonder what that person is doing with their mummy hand right now. I don't know. I don't. Very odd, very odd. And so, okay, this is awesome stuff. I wish I had some stuff that was worth something that I could send to you, but so you guys, do you provide, and I know you do, I'm sure you provide some sort of invoices for tax purposes at the end of the day?
No, we don't. So all of our clients are kept confidential. Now, when a client gets a check over $10,000, their financial institution will, but we don't. So everything has to be confidential. It's part of the agreement we have with buyers and sellers. And so we don't report any tax information at all.
Interesting. And then if somebody had something that they are just wondering about, can they take a picture on their phone and send it to you first to see if it's even something that?
Yes, I get a lot of texts each day with, with, you know, the network, and I think Tammy Jo would agree, it's, you know, we've built a strong network, and that's the whole key to running an efficient business. And I get a lot of texts from move managers or organizers, and just, is this worth anything? And it could just be a quick yes or no. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be long and drawn out because the relationship's already been formed. So they just need a quick answer, you know. But yes, I get that all the time.
And what about a client? Like, what if I have a couple clients that have things?
Oh yeah, no, that as well. They just have to do an introduction, like, hey, Derek, so-and-so gave me your number. And yeah, I get that too.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful too. Awesome. Well, I'm going to see, because we have covered a lot of ground as we do every single month. Let's see if we have any questions here that we can get to. Okay, aha. Okay, Tammy, here's a question for you. Do you handle work spaces like an office? And do you offer counseling? Do you offer counseling clients regarding items, hoarding,
I
underlying issues, regardless?
Mhm. So I do offer consulting, so if we're in the move, we're mainly in the downsizing, decluttering, move business, but I do offer some clients who all they want is for me to come in and share information, kind of give them a strategy. And so I do offer consulting services with that. And that can be a business that has a lot of inventory. It can be a professional business office with a lot of paperwork. What I'm not doing personally as a business anymore is spending tons of time working like in a business, setting up their financial books, because I have done QuickBooks and all that kind of stuff. So we don't develop big filing systems and things like that, but I do have referral partners in the professional organizing business that I do. I have training in the hoarding situations. That is a very complicated mental health situation. And so I have in the past worked with people. I have in the past moved people that are more in a hoarding. It's not as hard to move a hoarder. We basically just package it up and move it all to the next place. But it's so complicated and it has so many ramifications that that's a business that I refer out, because that really needs to be a whole team that works with someone in that situation to not cause more emotional damage and decide how over time to make progress to improve. So
Got it.
but I do offer, I charge a higher rate per hour to go in with somebody for a short period of time, give them all my referrals, give them all my information. They can call me periodically for support. So I do have clients like that. I also have clients that we meet with like once a week. I have a team member that will go to different people's houses once a week and just help them keep things going, not housekeeping, but to go through and kind of straighten out paperwork or straighten out, everything that they purchased. Or we do a lot of holiday, taking holiday things out of the attic and setting them up and reversing that.
Oh, that's good to know.
Let
I
us
didn't know
support
that.
these things. Mhm.
Now, if you'd only hang my Christmas lights, that'd be really great.
Too much on high ladders.
Untangle those dang things. And another question is there a place for smaller antiques, swords, mantle clock, coffee grinder? I think we might have covered that, but is there anything you'd want to add to that, guys?
There's various antique stores around. I think what's happened over the years, California real estate is so expensive. So for a place to have a brick and mortar where they're putting things, antiques, small antiques to sell, it costs so much to own that building and to staff it. And there's not a high demand for it. So you're just finding a lot of those smaller consignment stores and antique stores just really dwindling. And so it is cherry picking the ones that have higher value, getting those to auction. And then, what's nice is while those consignment stores have dwindled some, things like Facebook Marketplace that doesn't have the audience that Derek has, but still has a Bay Area audience, that would be the next best place because you don't have to pay a commission. So.
Yeah. Anything to add, Derek?
No, I think Tammy Jo hit it. Unless the sword is like a Tiffany and Company presentation sword, but if it's a fraternal sword, which is what we would typically see, I would certainly recommend Facebook Marketplace. I don't know about even Etsy, if that would even be suitable on Etsy. I'm not sure, but definitely Facebook Marketplace.
Interesting. Okay, good. Okay, well, I think that's it for the questions. Is there anything I failed to ask you two that you want to share before we sign off for the day?
I
Thanks for
just
inviting me.
really want to emphasize, don't keep yourself from living your best life because of your stuff. The stuff is just stuff. Think about your house like you're a bird flying over and it's got all these compartments. Take the roof off. Your house is just all these boxes, all these containers. And so you think those things in those containers are driving a lot of our choices. And we need to not let that drive our life so much. And not everything in your house is precious. We've been talking about all those really the big pieces or the valuable pieces, but even getting busy on stuff like clean out from underneath your sink and just get rid of all the excess that you don't need. That just makes the process so much easier as you're preparing to move.
Yeah.
Just let go.
And there are tricks and things that you can do to start the process on your own. If you want to go it alone, we don't recommend you do this alone, because people call me saying, Dayna, we know we want to downsize, we're ready, but it's going to be 6 months before we go through our stuff. And I'm telling them, no, actually it would be closer to like 2 or 3 weeks and we're ready to rock and roll. And they said, that's impossible. We've lived here for 50 years. But with the help of people like you, it really can be done. And what we find is that we're human and we get busy. So even best intentions, it just really never happens. And 6 months later, they haven't gotten any farther because life happens, or they don't have the energy, or they really are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So I agree with you, Tammy. And this is just a piece of the process. Getting rid of the stuff is a piece of the process. And we're going to cover the entire following the downsizing, right sizing method next month, those 5 steps. And the stuff is one of those steps. And so that'll be the 3rd part of the 3-part series. So go visit savvysenioursliving.com and you can see the lineup for the rest of the year. And I am going to try very hard to have us back meeting in person at the Lafayette Library later this year. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we can all meet again in person. That would be so exciting. But I want to just thank Derek and Tammy so much for your time, your wisdom, all that you do for everyone in our community. And thank you for being part of the seminar and webinar today. And have a great day. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.